Hi, I'm Tetsuto Miyashita. I'm a research scientist in paleobiology at the Canadian Museum of Nature.
And you have a particular interest in fossils. Where did that begin and how did it excite you?
It actually started when I was 10 years old. I got a Christmas present from my parents. That was a book about dinosaurs written by a Canadian paleontologist, Dr. Phil Curry. And that book just really fascinated me about the world of paleontology and how to study fossils and how to go out in the field and finding about these fossils. Right? I wrote to the author, the Dr. Curry, and that led to the correspondence. And I eventually decided to leave my family and move over here to study with Dr. Curry. And I was like 16 back then, so I just did all of my high school and university degrees with him, and here I am today.
Yes, it's the power of the written word. That letter began your journey. You actually ended up going into the fields after reading about all of this information in the dinosaur book. Tell us about the fields and what it's like to be up north looking for the fossils.
Sure. Yeah, so paleontology is not just about dinosaurs, but it's all about the animals that came here and then went before our time. The paleontology is basically a scientific field where we go out into the field and find the fossil remains of the organisms that lived in the past, and then just bring them back to the museum or university labs and study them, study their biology, like how they lived, where they lived, and then how they're related to one another. The Canadian Arctic is a really special place. It's so remote, it's a magnificent place to do the field work in because typically it's very, very, the remote and isolated settings. So we go out there in the summer for maybe like 2 to 3 weeks and spend all our time in the camp. So we basically like pitch our tents and then just do the camp life for about a month, right? And we walk around all day to look for fossils on the rock surfaces. And if we find something, then we just stop and then we started digging, around those fossils and then just like collect them and then conserve. So basically like preserve them, package them in a safe way and then bring them back to the museum.
Must be exciting when you find these fossils.
Oh yeah, there are some fossils here in this gallery that I personally went out and collected. And those are like really exciting moments that I still remember.
Why do you think it's important to search for these fossils?
There's a famous mural by the Gauguin, Who Are We, Where We Came From, and Where Are We Going? Paleontology is the area of study to focus on where we came from, of that questions. Right? So looking at all these animals, it really tells us about what kind of evolutionary path that our ancestors have taken. Picture those first steps that a baby takes, right? When you witness that moment, it's really special and a precious milestone in the development of a human being. And this gallery is a kind of like a nature's photo album of those baby steps that our ancestors took. Right? So in this gallery, we're going to show how our ancestors began in the oceans and then took their first baby steps through these messy teenage years of the swampy environment. And then we also show the trackways or the footprints of those early land animals that took a definitive steps toward the evolutionary consequences, which basically include us standing here and then looking at these fossils.
Yes, so your findings have answered probably a lot of questions, but again, I suppose they open up a lot more questions.
Oh, yes, yeah. So this life reconstruction of the Tiktaalik here, this is the representation of the decades of research that were done by the paleontologist. And there have been changing views on how these animals look like and how they behaved and even how they move their fins to take those steps onto the land, right? So, it's kind of like...
It's an imagined representation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can, come here and then take a look at these fossils and, they don't look like our skeletons, right? But if you stare at them long enough, and I'm going to show you some of the details here that really shows us the connections between these fish and us. But if you stare at these fossil fish for long enough, then we can start seeing a little bit of our own anatomy in them. So this is the moment, these are the moments that I want people to come here and then discover, like, okay, so like there are all these like links that connect all of these living beings in the nature and us. And yeah, I can sort of go into the details and talk about the some features of this fossil. For example, when you look at this animal, when a paleontologist takes a look, it's a fish, right? But it's a special, different kind of fish. And one of the main things is that there is that big bone just behind the jaw of this animal, right? That's the shoulder girdle. So basically, like, representing this region in our body. That shoulder girdle is detached from the skull. In fish, these two things are together, but then now it's two separate things. Yeah. So just so that these fins can push the ground a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently. But then what that creates is that this gap between the head and the shoulder that can now freely move. So this animal can actually raise the head above the water a little bit. So now we have a neck, right? So these are the small evolutionary steps that eventually explain what our bodies are made of and how our bodies actually work, and then how that came from in these ancestors. This is distinctly Canadian story as well. Almost all the fossils in this gallery are Canadian fossils and came from the coast to coast to coast, right? These are from the Canadian Arctic. There are footprints from Nova Scotia and so on. So we can actually write this particular chapter in the story of life on Earth, just using our Canadian specimens from the beginning to the end of that chapter. So that's a really fascinating thing that we can talk about here. And we are very unique in that sense that the fossil record that we are uncovering in Canada through the collaboration and cooperation with the indigenous people are just really writing that history. And just we are drawing on these distinctly Canadian natural heritages.
So we should be very proud.
Totally, yes. Yeah.
And leading all the others in this field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then these fish are literally putting their elbows up.
They are.
In that sense. I can tell you some of the sort of a new research in here and then how we are showing this. What we wanted to capture was this moment that this fish, Tiktaalik, is pushing itself up onto the land. What's really important in doing that, taking the steps onto the land, is to support your body using these stout fins. And we've known from the first discovery of the Tiktaalik that they had this really robust pectoral fins. These are the fins that eventually became our arms. But then that was only talking the part of that story, the step cycle, right? It's just like, our arms. But what about the back part? Now, the initial specimen didn't really have a complete back half of the body. And then the subsequent discoveries are just like uncoupling like what the rest of the body looked like. So if we stand from here, right, we designed it as such that, so first you notice that little aquatic plants, right? So you just like sort of crouch down and then you see those pelvic fins.
Yes.
And then you see that how that is like pushing,
yes.
right? Yeah, so...
to support the whole body.
Yeah, the recent discoveries show that how this pelvic fin is also contributing to giving the animal a prop up.
Yes, I'm sure you'll discover much more in your research up north about the whole of the evolution.
These fossils are displayed publicly for the first time. Well, as for the Tiktaalik, it was in the United States for a while.
Right.
So this is the Canadian premiere, but then most of the specimens that we put out on the gallery are in the public display for the first time.
Yes, that's super. So we invite the public to come and appreciate all of this work, have knowledge of our origins and of this particular time. This is a very exciting subject for you to be fulfilling your dream from that book on dinosaurs.
Yeah, totally, yes.
Yes. So I'd like to thank you very much for telling us about this, and wish you a lot of luck in your next exploration
Oh, thank
up in
you.
the
Yes.
Arctic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you'll come back with a lot more stories and discoveries for us to enjoy and ponder upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.